A waitress helped a man in the rain. The next day, she discovers he was a sheikh. Comment what you thought of this story with a rating from 0 to 10, and let me know what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better, so subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The rain fell as if the sky had burst into tears over New York City, turning the streets of the East Village into turbulent rivers that reflected the neon lights of Japanese and Middle Eastern restaurants. Chloe Evans adjusted the backpack on her tired shoulders and glanced at the cracked screen of her cell phone. 2:15 in the morning. Another shift over at Al Andalus, the small Arab restaurant where she had worked for 3 years, waiting tables and carrying on her arms the weight of a family that depended entirely on her. At 26, Chloe had a face marked by determination and the accumulated fatigue of someone who intimately knows the taste of struggle. The daughter of Sarah, an American who had worked her whole life as a cleaner, and Ahmed, a Syrian who had arrived in the States in the 90s seeking a better life. She had grown up hearing stories of a distant country that smelled of spices and jasmine. Ahmed had died when she was 16, leaving behind fragmented memories of the Arabic he would whisper in her ear and recipes for foods her mother could never quite reproduce. Now, 10 years later, Chloe supported her mother, who was battling uncontrolled diabetes, and her 18-year-old younger brother, who dreamed of being a soccer player but hadn't yet found his place in the world. During the day, she studied nursing at a private college she paid for with great sacrifice. At night, she split her time between the restaurant and a part-time job at a veterinary clinic. It was rare for her to get more than 4 hours of sleep a night. The storm this morning seemed fiercer than usual. The wind threw water violently against her face as she ran towards the 2010 Corolla she had bought used, with a tampered odometer and some engine problems she pretended not to notice. It was her most prized possession, the difference between getting home in 20 minutes or spending 2 hours on public transport. That's when she saw him. A solitary figure walked along the soaked sidewalk with slow, deliberate steps, as if the storm were just a gentle summer breeze. The man was tall, must have been over 6 feet, and even under his completely soaked clothes, it was possible to perceive a natural elegance in every movement. He didn't run from the rain, didn't seek shelter. He simply walked, with his hands in his pockets, as if immersed in thoughts too deep to be interrupted by the chaos of the outside world. Chloe slowed down her car. There was something in that man's posture that awakened in her the same protective instinct that made her care for her sick mother and her lost brother. It was the nurse's gene she carried in her blood, inherited from a mother who always took in stray cats and offered soup to the homeless. She opened the passenger window, letting the rain into the car. "Do you want a ride? You're going to get sick walking in this rain." The man stopped and turned to her. Under the faint light of the lampposts, Chloe could see a face that seemed sculpted from marble, with striking features that vaguely reminded her of the movies about the Middle East she had watched as a child. The dark eyes observed her for a moment that seemed eternal, and then he smiled. It wasn't an ordinary smile. It was laden with a deep melancholy, as if he were a man who hadn't found a reason to truly smile in a long time. "Are you sure?" "You don't know who I am," he said, with an accent she couldn't quite place, but which carried the musicality she recognized from her father's stories. "I know you're someone soaked on a Tuesday morning. That's enough for me." He hesitated for a few more seconds, as if weighing consequences she couldn't imagine, and then opened the car door. As he sat beside her, Chloe smelled a subtle scent of sandalwood and something that reminded her of the incense her father used to burn on nights filled with longing. "Khalil," he said, extending his right hand. "Chloe." She shook his hand, noticing the soft skin of someone who had never needed to work with their hands, but also the firmness of someone who carried heavy responsibilities. An Arabic name, Khalil, observed with genuine interest. My father was Syrian. He died when I was a teenager, but he left some things behind. The name, a few scattered words, a taste for spiced food. During the 20-minute drive to the hotel, Khalil indicated the Plaza, a 5-star hotel in the heart of the city. They conversed in a strange mix of English and a few Arabic words that flowed naturally from his mouth, and that she understood by instinct. Khalil spoke of the longing he felt for places he had visited on business trips, and Chloe found herself talking about her shifts at the teaching hospital, about her mother who insisted on making Arabic coffee every morning, even without knowing the correct recipe. There was something magnetic about that man that went beyond his evident physical beauty. It was the way he listened, with a total attention that made her feel her words truly mattered. It was the way he spoke of longing, as if he intimately knew the feeling of carrying the weight of worlds one can no longer reach. When they arrived at the hotel, Khalil was silent for a few seconds before getting out of the car. "Thank you, Chloe. You have no idea how much this gesture means to me." "It was just a ride," she replied, but she knew it had been more than that. Something had changed in those 20 minutes, an inexplicable connection that left her heart racing. "Sometimes the simplest gestures are the most important," he said, getting out of the car and turning to her one last time. "May Allah protect you." Chloe drove home with the strange feeling that her life had just taken a completely new direction, without her understanding exactly how or why. That night, she dreamed of deserts and storms, of dark-eyed men who spoke in languages her heart understood even when her mind couldn't translate. The next morning, she woke up to her mother calling from the next room, asking for help with her insulin shot. Reality hit her like a slap in the face. Bills to pay, medicine to buy, another day of studies and work ahead. But as she prepared breakfast, Chloe found herself thinking about the scent of sandalwood and the feeling that she had met someone who carried secrets greater than her own. 3 days later, Chloe was arranging the tables at Al-Andalus when Mr. Hassan appeared at the kitchen door with an expression she had never seen before. The 60-year-old Lebanese man, who had treated her like a daughter since she started working there, was visibly nervous, stroking his graying beard repeatedly and checking every detail of the restaurant with obsession. "Chloe, Habibi, I need you to be perfect today. More than perfect. I need you to be an angel," he said, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the flower arrangement on the main table for the 5th time. "What's going on, Mr. Hassan? I've never seen you like this. We have a very important guest tonight. Very important. A man who can change the destiny of our little restaurant, who can help us grow to bring our food to more people." Chloe frowned. Mr. Hassan had always been dramatic, but there was something different in his agitation this time. He disappeared into the back of the restaurant and returned with a crumpled copy of the Wall Street Journal, pointing to a photo in the business section. "This man is having dinner here tonight. Khalil al-Rashid, one of the most powerful sheikhs from the United Arab Emirates. He's in the US to negotiate billion-dollar investments in solar energy and sustainable urban development. He chose our restaurant to host some American businessmen." Chloe's blood ran cold when her eyes met the photograph. It was him, the man from the rain, the kind stranger who had accepted her ride 3 nights ago. But in the newspaper photo, Khalil wore an impeccable suit and was surrounded by businessmen at an airport, with the posture of someone accustomed to commanding empires. "Chloe, are you okay? You've gone pale." Mr. Hassan's voice seemed to come from far away. He's very important indeed," she managed to murmur. Still, processing the information that the man who had called her by her Arabic name and spoken of longing, was actually one of the most powerful people in the Arab world. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Mr. Hassan hired extra help, had every surface of the restaurant polished, and even brought in fresh flowers from an expensive downtown florist. Chloe tried to concentrate on her studies in the afternoon, but the words in her pharmacology textbook seemed to dance on the page without making sense. At 7 in the evening, she was at Al-Andalus wearing her best work attire, a white blouse and a black skirt that her mother had helped her press with special care. Mr. Hassan had insisted that she be the waitress responsible for the main table, unaware that she and the Sheikh already knew each other. When Khalil entered the restaurant at 8:30, accompanied by 2 men in dark suits who were clearly bodyguards and 3 more American businessmen, Chloe felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. He was different. He was no longer the melancholic man walking in the rain, but an imposing figure who radiated natural authority. The tailored suit highlighted his height and athletic build, and the way he held his head made it clear he was used to being the most important person in any room. But when their eyes met, she saw a flicker of recognition in his dark eyes, followed by something that could have been surprise or even relief. "Good evening. Welcome to Al-Andalus," Chloe said, her voice slightly trembling, addressing the whole group but avoiding looking directly at Khalil. "Good evening," he replied in perfect English, but now with the controlled diction of someone accustomed to speaking publicly. "I've heard you serve the best Arabic food in New York." Throughout the dinner, Chloe felt the weight of his gaze on her. Every time she served the table or brought a new dish, there was an electric tension in the air that seemed invisible to the others, but left her hands trembling imperceptibly. Khalil behaved like the businessman and diplomat he was, discussing astronomical figures and infrastructure projects with the Americans, but occasionally his eyes sought hers with an intensity that made her blush. "Arabic cuisine has always fascinated me," one of the American businessmen commented. "There's so much history in every spice, so much family tradition." "True," Khalil agreed, without taking his eyes off Chloe. "Sometimes we find the most authentic traditions in the most unexpected places, with people who carry that heritage in their blood without even realizing it." Chloe almost dropped the pitcher of juice she was serving. When the dinner ended and the group was preparing to leave, Khalil lingered to put on his jacket, letting the others leave first. "The food was excellent," he said to Mr. Hassan, who nearly fainted with emotion at the compliment, "and the service was impeccable." Then, addressing Chloe discreetly, he added in a low voice, "Could you show me the way to the restroom?" With her heart pounding, Chloe led him down the small hallway at the back of the restaurant. When they were out of earshot, Khalil stopped and turned to her. "You didn't tell me you worked here," he said with a half smile. "You didn't tell me you were a sheikh," she retorted, trying to maintain her composure. "Touché." He was silent for a moment, as if struggling with himself. "Chloe, I need you to know that night, when you offered me a ride, it was the first time in a long time that someone saw me as just a man, not as a title, not as a bank account, not as a business opportunity. And now I don't know what to do with that." His voice carried a vulnerability that completely contrasted with the authority he had shown during dinner. "My life is complicated, Chloe, very complicated. So is mine." They looked at each other for a long moment, and Chloe felt as if she were on the edge of a cliff. There was something between them, a connection that went beyond physical attraction, but also the certainty that their worlds were incompatibly different. "I'll be in New York for a few weeks," Khalil said finally. Maybe we could get some coffee, somewhere discreet. I don't know if that's a good idea. I know it's not." He smiled sadly. "But sometimes the best experiences in life are the ones we know we shouldn't have." Before Chloe could answer, Mr. Hassan's voice echoed down the hall, looking for her. Khalil straightened his shoulders, instantly returning to the posture of the powerful man he was. "Think about what I said," he murmured, passing her in. The narrow hallway, so close that she once again smelled the sandalwood scent that had been etched in her memory. That night, Chloe returned home in a state of total shock. During the drive, she tried to process the discovery that the stranger from the rain was in fact one of the richest and most influential people on the planet. She tried to convince herself that it was all absurd, that she was a waitress and nursing student who had nothing to do with the world of sheikhs and billions of dollars. But when she got home and found her mother watching the evening news, she saw a report on Sheikh Khalil al-Rashid's visit to the US. The reporter talked about his fortune estimated in the tens of billions of dollars, about his role as a mediator in international conflicts, about his reputation as one of the most eligible bachelors in the Arab world after being tragically widowed 2 years earlier. "What a handsome man," her mother commented distractedly. "And they say he's very generous, builds hospitals and schools all over the world." Chloe murmured something incomprehensible and locked herself in her room, where she stayed awake until dawn, torn between the excitement of have piqued the interest of such a man and the terror of falling for someone whose world was completely inaccessible to her. A week later, Khalil had become a regular customer at Al-Andalus. Every night around 9 o'clock, he would appear alone, without his bodyguards or assistants, and specifically asked to be served by Chloe. He always sat at the corner table with his back to the wall and ordered different dishes each night, as if exploring every flavor of the cuisine his father had taught him to love. Their conversation started formally, limited to orders and polite comments about the food, but gradually Khalil began to ask questions about her. He wanted to know about her nursing studies, about her sick mother, about the dreams she carried. And Chloe, despite all her caution, found herself answering with an honesty that surprised her. "Why nursing?" he asked on a Thursday, while savoring a plate of kibbeh she had recommended. "My mother always wanted to be a nurse, but she never had the chance. I grew up watching her take care of everyone in the neighborhood, bringing medicine to neighbors, helping pregnant women, comforting families in hospitals. I think I inherited that from her, this instinct to care. And you? What do you want for yourself besides fulfilling your mother's dreams?" The question caught her off guard. For so long she had only thought about surviving, paying bills, taking care of her family, that she had forgotten to dream of something just for herself. "I wanted to have a clinic one day. Nothing too big, just a place where I could treat people who can't afford decent medical care. I wanted to make a difference in someone's life." Khalil watched her with an intensity that made her blush. "You already do make a difference, more than you imagine." That night, as the restaurant was preparing to close, Khalil did something unprecedented. Instead of leaving immediately after dinner, he waited outside, leaning against a black BMW she hadn't noticed before. "Want to get some coffee?" he asked when she came out. "I know a place that's open late." Chloe looked around, checking if anyone was watching. The street was empty, but she knew that accepting would be crossing a line she might not be able to come back from. "Just one coffee," she said finally. He took her to a small 24-hour coffee shop in Greenwich Village, an unpretentious place where she would never have imagined finding a billionaire sheikh. They sat at a table in the back, away from the windows, and for the first time they talked without hurry, without the pressure of work or the formality of the restaurant. "My wife died in a car accident 2 years ago," Khalil said suddenly, distractedly stirring his sugar. "I was driving." Chloe felt her heart ache. "I'm so sorry. It was on a stormy night, similar to the one when you offered me a ride. Amara always told me to drive slower in the rain, but I was in a hurry, always in a hurry because of business." His voice carried a deep pain. "I lost control of the car on a curve. She died instantly. I walked away without a scratch. It wasn't your fault. You don't know that. He looked up at her, and Chloe saw a man tormented by guilt he carried alone. Since then, I haven't been able to connect with anyone. I couldn't feel anymore. It was as if a part of me had died with her. Was, until that night in the rain, when a strange waitress stopped to help a soaked stranger, expecting nothing in return. They were silent for a long moment. Chloe felt the weight of the revelation and the responsibility of have awakened something in a man who had spent 2 years in mourning. "Khalil, you know this is impossible, don't you?" she said finally. "You and we're from completely different worlds." "I know." He reached his hand across the table and lightly touched her fingers. "But sometimes impossible and wrong are the same thing, and sometimes the only right thing we can do is embrace the impossible." In the following weeks, they began to meet regularly, always in discreet places, always late at night, always with the feeling that they were stealing moments that didn't belong to them. Khalil showed her a side of New York she had never known, hidden restaurants, secret viewpoints, bookstores that stayed open late. And she showed him the city through the eyes of someone who knows every corner out of necessity, not tourism. Chloe discovered that, behind all that wealth and power, Khalil was a deeply lonely man. He told her about the constant pressure of leading not only companies, but an entire family clan, about the expectations of a people who saw him as a symbol of modernity and tradition, about the dozens of marriage proposals he received monthly from families wanting to unite fortunes and influences. "My family has already chosen 3 potential wives for me," he confessed one dawn as they walked through an empty Washington Square park. "They are all wonderful, educated women from good families. Any of them would be a politically smart choice. But when I'm with them, I feel like I'm playing a role, like an actor hired to play the part of the perfect husband." He stopped walking and turned to her. "With you, I feel like Khalil. Just Khalil." What was happening between them was dangerous, and Chloe knew it. Each meeting left her more involved, more in love with a man who should have been just an impossible dream. Her friends from college began to notice changes in her. The way she smiled distractedly during classes, how she was constantly checking her phone, how she had started wearing a more expensive perfume she'd managed to buy by working extra hours. Her mother noticed too. "You're different, my dear. Lighter, despite working so much. Have you met someone?" Chloe couldn't lie completely. "I've met someone special, Mom. But it's complicated. Love always is, Habibi. Your father and I also faced many difficulties at the beginning. He was a foreigner. I was a simple American girl. But what matters is if you're good for each other. If they were good for each other." Chloe reflected on this for days. With Khalil, she felt like the best version of herself. He listened to her with genuine attention, valued her opinions, made her feel that her ambitions and dreams were valid and important. But she also knew she was living a fantasy that would have an inevitable end. Reality knocked on the door on a Tuesday afternoon, when Chloe got home from college and found 2 men in dark suits talking to her mother in the living room. They were journalists from a tabloid, investigating Sheikh al-Rashid's secret romantic encounters with a Brazilian-American waitress. "We know he's been visiting the restaurant where you work," one of them said, showing blurry photos taken from a distance. "And we have information that you've been meeting outside of work. Our readers would love to know more about the Sheikh's romance." Chloe felt her world collapse. Her mother was confused and scared, not understanding how her daughter had gotten involved with someone so important as to attract media attention. "There's nothing to tell," Chloe said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He's just a customer at the restaurant." But she knew it was too late. From the moment the press decided to investigate, her private life ceased to exist, and Khalil's life would inevitably become an international scandal if they discovered that the most eligible sheikh in the Arab world was romantically involved with a waitress? That night she called Khalil for the first time. "We need to meet," she said without preamble. "We have a problem." Khalil arrived at their meeting spot in 15 minutes, faster than Chloe thought possible in New York traffic. They met at the same coffee shop in the village, but this time the atmosphere was thick with tension. When she told him about the journalist's visit, she saw his face harden into an expression she didn't know. It was the Sheikh, the man accustomed to diplomatic crises and international scandals. "How much time do you think we have before they publish something?" he asked calculatingly. "I don't know. They didn't have anything concrete, but if they keep digging, they'll find out everything." Khalil ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of vulnerability that contrasted with his controlled posture. "Chloe, you need to understand what this means. If our relationship becomes public, it won't just be a tabloid scandal. It will be a diplomatic crisis." "A diplomatic crisis? I'm here representing my country in negotiations involving billions of dollars and strategic agreements. My family has political alliances that go back centuries. A romantic involvement with a woman who is not from the Arab world without the approval of the family council would be seen as a betrayal of tradition." Chloe felt like she was sinking. She knew it was complicated, but she hadn't fully understood the political dimensions of what they were experiencing. "And there's more," Khalil continued, his voice filled with a pain she recognized from the night he had spoken about his wife. "I received a call from Abu Dhabi early this morning. There are unstable political movements in the region, attempts by extremist groups to destabilize traditional alliances. My family is being pressured for me to return immediately and assume responsibilities that have been postponed since Amara's death." "What kind of responsibilities?" "An arranged marriage with the daughter of Sheikh Al Maktoum, a union that would strengthen military and economic alliances crucial for the stability of the region." He looked directly into her eyes. "It's a matter of national security, Chloe. If I don't return and fulfill these commitments, other people could die in conflicts that I could help prevent." The silence that followed was deafening. Chloe felt the weight of reality crashing down on her like an avalanche. It wasn't just a matter of social or cultural differences. It was about responsibilities that affected thousands of people. "When do you have to leave?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Tomorrow night." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Tomorrow. After weeks of building something that seemed real and transformative, they had less than 24 hours. "I understand," Chloe said, trying to maintain her composure. "You have responsibilities greater than—" "No!" Khalil interrupted, grabbing her hands across the table with a desperate intensity. "Don't say you understand, because I don't understand it myself. Chloe, in all my responsibilities, in all the duties I carry, I've never questioned anything. I always accepted that my personal life was secondary to the greater good. But with you—" He paused, struggling for words. "With you, I discovered there's a difference between existing and living. For the past 2 years, I've just been existing, following protocols, honoring memories, carrying guilt. You brought me back to life. Khalil, listen to me, please. I spent the whole night on the phone with my family council, with mediators, with diplomats. I reached a deal." Chloe felt her heart stop. "What kind of deal?" "I will assume the responsibilities that fall to me, but with conditions. I managed to postpone the arranged marriage for 2 years, enough time to stabilize the political situation. And more importantly, I got authorization to—" He hesitated, as if he still couldn't believe what he was about to say, "to bring someone with me, someone of my choosing." Chloe's world stopped. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I want you to come with me to Abu Dhabi. Not as a temporary adventure, not as a secret scandal. As my official companion, with diplomatic protection, with my family's recognition. Khalil, that's impossible. I can't just leave everything. My mother, my brother, my studies. Your mother would have the best medical treatment in the world. Your brother could study at the best universities. And you... He smiled for the first time that night. You could build not just a clinic, but an entire humanitarian healthcare system. I have resources that can turn your dreams into reality on a scale you can't even imagine. Chloe felt dizzy. It was as if he were offering her a kingdom, but also asking her to abandon everything she knew. And what if it doesn't work out? What if your traditions are stronger than our feelings? What if I can't adapt to your world? Then at least we will have tried. Chloe, for the first time in my life, I'm willing to fight for something I want, not just for something I must have. But I can only fight if you're by my side. They spent the rest of the night walking the empty streets of New York, visiting places that had become special to them. The park where they talked about dreams, the bench in the East Village where Khalil had first spoken of Amara, the 24-hour bakery where they discovered they both liked their coffee. Too sweet. As the sun began to rise, they were on the Brooklyn Bridge, watching the city awaken. Chloe thought about everything that city represented for her. Struggle, survival, but also limitations and cycles that seemed impossible to break. If I go with you, she said finally, I want some conditions, which are, I want to continue being a nurse, I want to work, to have my own professional identity. I don't want to be just the Sheikh's companion. Agreed. I want my family to always be welcome to visit us, and for me to be able to come to the US whenever I need to. Agreed. And I want you to understand that I'm still the same waitress who offered you a ride in the rain. I won't change who I am to fit into your world. Khalil turned to her with that same melancholic smile from the first night. Chloe, it was exactly that waitress who made me want to fight for something of my own for the first time in my life. Why would I ever want to change her? 6 months later, Chloe Al-Rashid was inaugurating the first humanitarian nursing training center in the United Arab Emirates, a modern complex that combined cutting-edge technology with the principles of human care she had learned on the streets of New York. Her mother, Sarah, had moved to Abu Dhabi and worked as a consultant for the center's community health program. Her brother was studying engineering at an American university with a scholarship from the Al-Rashid Foundation. At the inauguration ceremony, while international dignitaries praised the innovative project, Chloe looked for Khalil in the crowd. She found him talking to diplomats, but when their eyes met, he smiled and made an almost imperceptible gesture towards the sky. It was beginning to rain. That night, after all the ceremonies, they walked together through the palace gardens, letting the rain wet their faces as they had on that first morning in New York. Chloe wore a dress that combined elements of American fashion with traditional Arab details, a perfect synthesis of the world she had learned to inhabit. "Do you regret it?" Khalil asked, as he sometimes did in moments of insecurity. "Offering a ride to a stranger in the rain?" "Never," she replied, lacing her fingers with his. "It was the best decision I ever made. And there, under the desert, rain." Chloe understood that some love stories are not about finding someone who fits perfectly into our life, but about finding someone who inspires us to create a completely new life, bigger and more beautiful than we ever dreamed possible. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.